Following the Brood saga and the creation of the New Mutants is a long series of issues that work as one era, but are too long to be done in one video, so I split them approximately in half, give or take. These stories have a tendency to be a lot more grounded with less supernatural elements, although they still pop in now and again. Around this time, Marvel also started producing two X-adjacent series, Dazzler and Alpha Flight. However, since they're not written by Claremont and aren't directly connected to the main X-Men series, I'm not going to be looking at them for the purpose of these retrospectives. With that out of the way, today the X-Men go through a series of weddings as the New Mutants expand their roster. As a brief recap, the X-Men just returned from battling the alien Brood in space and saved Xavier from a Brood infection by transferring his mind into a new body, courtesy of the Laundra and the Starjammers, who were temporarily staying on Earth. While the X-Men were presumed dead, Xavier assembled a team of new mutants consisting of Sam, Donnie, Roberto, Rain, and Sean. Colossus' younger sister Illyana was also aged into her teenage years by the strange time flow in Limbo, and the X-Men tangled with Mystique's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, including her adoptive daughter Rogue, who stole the powers and memories of Carol Danvers. With that out of the way, it's time to get to some new material. The first book I want to take a look at is actually the fifth Marvel graphic novel, the acclaimed God Loves Man Kill story from Claremont and artist Brent Eric Anderson. The story opens with two young children, one of whom is a mutant, being shot and murdered by a group called the Purifiers, with the strike team led by a woman named Anne. This draws the attention of Magneto, who begins to investigate the Purifiers. Kitty, meanwhile, gets into a fight with a boy at her dance studio who hates mutants, although Colossus and Illyana manage to break it up. The X-Men and Illyana then watch Xavier have a televised debate with anti-mutant televangelist William Stryker, who claims that mutants are devil-spawn and subhuman. As Cyclops and Storm escort Xavier home, they are attacked and captured by the Purifiers, who frame it as a car crash, although Wolverine is able to deduce otherwise. Kitty and Illyana find the Purifier security camera by the mansion and trash it, but Illyana is captured and Kitty sneaks into the back of the car to follow. Colossus, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler attack some Purifiers before getting saved by Magneto, who teams up with the X-Men to interrogate the Purifiers. They learn that the Purifiers work for Stryker, who is going to mind control Xavier to make him kill all the mutants. As Stryker's base, his mind control device succeeds, and Xavier seemingly kills Cyclops and Storm. The other X-Men and Magneto meet up with Kitty and free Illyana, Cyclops, and Storm, who are not dead and merely unconscious. The next day, Stryker gives a massive televised speech about how mutants are evil and need to be killed, which makes a lot of officials and religious leaders question him, although the public still seems to be in support. Stryker turns on Xavier, who starts to hurt all the mutants around him. Magneto confronts Stryker, but Xavier takes Magneto out, leaving him needing to be protected by police officers. Anne runs out to warn Stryker that the X-Men are coming, but when she starts to bleed from Xavier's attacks, Stryker calls her a traitor and kills her on live television. The X-Men then confront Stryker on stage, and Cyclops gives a speech about how it doesn't matter what they are, but what they do, and throws out the idea the mutants could be the true race. Stryker then points at Nightcrawler and asks if he looks human, to which Kitty emotionally replies that Nightcrawler is a better person, more of a man than Stryker will ever be. Stryker goes to kill Kitty, but is instead shot by a police officer, who lets the X-Men Magneto leave. The X-Men Magneto group and Magneto offers the X-Men a chance to join him in his quest for a mutant utopia, but the X-Men refuse and Magneto heads off, the X-Men asserting that although they still have a long ways to go until peace is achieved, they won't stop trying. This story is incredibly well done, and really brings to the forefront the political topics of X-Men that Claremont had been hinting at for a while, and will start to come into focus down the road. The panel of Stryker asking if Nightcrawler was human is famous, and Kitty's subsequent speech is the most powerful of the issue. It's a very strong start to this era of X-Men. Meanwhile, over in Uncanny X-Men 168, we finally pick up the storyline of Kitty being demoted to the New Mutants from 167, which manages to get nicely avoided in both the Dracula Annual and God Loves Man Kills, since Xavier is away from the team when Kitty does all her X-Men stuff. As opposed to God Loves Man Kills ending on a famous panel, this story opens on it with Kitty declaring that Professor Xavier is a jerk. Kitty proceeds to spend the first half of the issue being in an aggressive mood, but gets calmed down by Stevie Hunter, Kitty's dance teacher. Kitty then tries every way conceivable to convince Xavier to let her rejoin the X-Men, but nothing seems to work. That is until the mansion is attacked by the alien Syndrians that Kitty fights off with help of Colossus and Lockheed, the pet dragon that Kitty adopted from the Brood planet. Witnessing Kitty's abilities in combat, Xavier lets Kitty rejoin the X-Men as long as she keeps up her studies, which Kitty gratefully agrees to. As for the other X-Men, Wolverine leaves to take a break with Nightcrawler, while Nightcrawler hangs out with his magical girlfriend Amanda Sefton. Cyclops spends some time with his old flame Lee Forrester before he and Corsair go visit his grandparents, where Cyclops meets Madeline Pryor, a Jean Grey lookalike. At the start of next issue, former X-Man Angel is captured and his girlfriend Candy is attacked. She is saved by Nightcrawler, who also tracks the kidnapper to the sewers. The shockingly small X-Men team of Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, and Kitty go into the sewers by the subway tunnels, where they are ambushed by a set of grotesque mutants with names like Plague and Sunder. The X-Men mostly come out on top, but Kitty escapes through the walls and gets lost. She soon falls ill and passes out, but is found and saved by Caliban, a mutant that previously tried to kidnap Kitty to be his friend. At the headquarters of the Hellfire Club, Sebastian Shaw and his servant Tessa find a mysteriously catatonic Emma Frost. Meanwhile, the other X-Men find the leader of the sewer mutants, or Morlocks as they call themselves, whose name is Callisto, and she is Angel tied up so she can marry him to bear her heir. The X-Men attempt to free him, but are forced to stand down to save Storm's life. Issue 170 actually starts with a dance between Cyclops and Madeline, and although Cyclops is clearly unnerved by her uncanny resemblance to Jean Grey, he also loves her. Mystique also has a nightmare where Mastermind and Jean try to kill her, and she wakes up to learn that her adopted daughter Rogue is missing. Back in the sewers, the X-Men once again try to rescue Storm, but fail. Kitty wakes up and asks Caliban to help the others, which she doesn't want to do because he knows that Kitty will leave him afterwards. Kitty promises to stay if Caliban helps, so Caliban brings the sick Kitty to the battle and informs the X-Men that they can save Angel and Kitty if they beat Callisto in a trial by combat to become leader of the Morlocks. Nightcrawler goes to challenge Callisto, but Storm does it instead. Callisto accepts, with the only rule being that Storm can't use her powers. Storm agrees, and the battle commences over a beautiful 2 pages that culminates in Storm fatally stabbing Callisto. Callisto and Kitty are both saved by a Morlock healer, quite convenient, and with Storm as leader of both the Morlocks and the X-Men take Angel and leave, with no word of Kitty's promise to Caliban. To close the issue out, Cyclops explains his powers to Madeline, which she accepts. The Cyclops subplot really ties in nicely here, as it shows true love against whatever Callisto wants with Angel. Following the X-Men's return home, Rogue arrives at the mansion seeking help from Xavier to balance out her own persona with the one she stole from Carol Danvers way back when. The other X-Men don't wish to help her, but Xavier is insistent that she needs their help and wishes them no harm. The X-Men go to train in the Danger Room to cool off, but when Illyana activates the Danger Session, it is of Belasco, the demon who kidnapped her. Illyana goes into a panic and creates her soul sword, an energy blade made of her soul, and attacks Kitty. Kitty calms Illyana down by disarming her, and Illyana starts to cry over what she's done. Xavier is getting somewhere with Rogue when Carol Danvers shows up, still the superpowered binary, and starts beating the crap out of Rogue. Colossus holds her down, and Xavier announces to the X-Men that he wants Rogue to join them. Storm, Nightcrawler, and Kitty threaten to quit if she does so, but Xavier convinces them that Rogue is no more dangerous than Wolverine, and she needs to be given a chance. The X-Men reluctantly agree, but Carol wants no part of Rogue and flies off, leaving the X-Men for good. With the first new member since Kitty Pryde, it's time to check on one of the oldest members, Wolverine, who's starring in the X-Men's first miniseries, aptly titled Wolverine. Wolverine starts out in the Canadian Rocky Mountains, hunting down and easily killing a rampaging bear that murdered multiple people. He then hunts down the person that poisoned the bear and beats the snot out of them, Wolverine style. Wolverine then heads for Japan to try and meet up with his love interest, Mariko, who has not been responding to any of Wolverine's letters or phone calls. Wolverine learns that Mariko's father, Shingen Hashida, has returned and forced Mariko into marriage, which greatly upsets him. Wolverine then chats with Mariko, who admits that she still loves him, but her honor holds above everything else, even if her husband abuses her. Wolverine is then nearly killed before being brought to Shingen and Mariko, and Shingen challenges Wolverine to a duel. When things get too hot, Wolverine unleashes his claws, revealing him to be a bit unwieldy, but is still handily defeated by Shingen and left out in the street. He is then saved from some street thugs by a mysterious assassin named Yukio. Yukio and Wolverine then get attacked by the Hand, a group of highly trained assassins, and although Wolverine kicks their butts, when Wolverine rests, Yukio goes off and meets with Shingen, her employer, who tells her to kill a business rival named Katsuyori at a meeting with Mariko. Yukio agrees, revealing that the Hand attack was a ploy to get Wolverine to trust her. Yukio returns to Wolverine and tells him that Katsuyori is actually her abusive employer, so Wolverine agrees to help her kill him. Once they arrive, they find Mariko and Katsuyori watching a play about samurai, but one of them tries to kill Mariko. Wolverine jumps in and saves Mariko and ends up going into a berserker rage fighting the rest of the theater troupe. Seeing Wolverine like this absolutely horrifies Mariko, and he doesn't stop her from leaving. Outside, Yukio kills Katsuyori, making her mission a success. Wolverine and Yukio then gallivant around Japan for a while, falling in love. They are then approached by Wolverine's old friend Asano, who works for the Japanese police. Asano wants Wolverine's help taking down a crime lord, but Wolverine refuses. He and Yukio then almost get run over by a train in a game of chicken, and Wolverine has a nightmare about being killed by Mariko. When he awakes, he finds Yukio gone and a bunch of dead hand ninjas that she killed. Wolverine returns to his apartment where he finds Asano dead by Yukio's hand. Yukio runs through the rooftops of Japan, pursued by Wolverine, until Wolverine stabs Yukio with the knife that killed Asano. Before Wolverine can decide whether or not to kill her, he is ambushed by the Hand, and once he kills them all, Yukio is gone. Wolverine realizes that life is about growth and change, not stagnation, and determines to kill Shingen for good. As Wolverine kills countless hand ninjas, Yukio is captured and brought before Shingen, who is enraged at Yukio for not killing Wolverine like he ordered. Shingen then battles Yukio in a duel of honor and handily beats her. Before he can finish her off, however, Wolverine breaks in to kill Mariko's husband. Her husband holds Mariko hostage, but Yukio kills him from behind before kissing Wolverine and running off. Wolverine then duels Shingen after a beautiful, near-textless fight sequence. Wolverine kills Shingen by stabbing him through the face. Mariko comes in and is honor-bound to kill Wolverine for killing her father, but she declares that Shingen was bringing dishonor upon her house and Wolverine brought it back, and she embraces him, after granting him her clan's honor sword. Some months later, the X-Men get a letter inviting them to the wedding of Wolverine and Mariko. All in all, the first Wolverine mini is really good, playing well with the ideas of honor and what makes someone a man or a beast. One thing that makes it stand out is that the entire story, other than brief interludes, are narrated by Wolverine, so you really get to see the entire thing through his eyes and mind. The art by Frank Miller was also gorgeous, and it adds beautifully to the darker aesthetic. Before we get to Wolverine's wedding, we need to hop over to the New Mutants to check out what they're doing. In New Mutants number 4, Xavier apologizes for the stuff he did as a Brood, then the New Mutants help track down someone who's been stalking Stevie Hunter. They make a mess of things to find out that it's Stevie's intern, who is both in love with her and suffered parental abuse. The New Mutants basically call CPS, and that's the end of that. In New Mutants number 5, Xavier continues to relearn how to walk, while Stevie takes the New Mutants to a fair where they meet Premier Motorcycle Racers Team America, a very little-known team Marvel created way back when. Unfortunately, Team America is attacked by Hydra, led by Viper and her right-hand man, the Silver Samurai. The New Mutants and Team America attempt to fight off Hydra until the Black Rider shows up, a mysterious figure that gets Team America out of danger. Unfortunately, Black Rider is defeated and revealed to be Danny Moonstar of all people. Danny is then kidnapped by Hydra, who teleports away. Viper then separately commissions Team America to steal an object for her in exchange for Donnie's life. Xavier orders the New Mutants to stay put while he assists Team America, but the New Mutants decide to go save Donnie on their own. Team America's object is held by the evil organization AIM, and although they have a few tough scrapes, they manage to get by. They also learn that the Black Rider persona possesses someone nearby when Team America is in danger and grants that person the abilities of everyone in Team America. In Viper's face, Silver Samurai complains that his father is dead and his sister, Marigo, took all his possessions after announcing her betrothal to Wolverine, and Viper promises to give Silver Samurai his revenge once they are finished with the New Mutants. They definitely aren't the villains for the next X-Men issues or anything. The New Mutants then break in, and although their teamwork is still a bit rough, they manage to save Donnie and force Viper and Silver Samurai to retreat. Unfortunately, Viper then triggers the base's self-destruct, blowing up the base with the New Mutants still inside. This leads directly into issue 7, where Roberto manages to save everyone except for Sean, who is presumably dead. Xavier and the X-Men are even helping to look, but Sean can't be found. Roberto's mom Nina is also there to meet the New Mutants and bring them on vacation to Brazil, and Xavier essentially forces them to go. When Nightcrawler calls Xavier out for being rude, Xavier admits that he feels that Sean is not dead, but doesn't want to tell the New Mutants in case she is. The New Mutants head to Rio where they have dinner with Roberto's parents, and learn that Roberto's mom is going on an expedition to the heart of the Amazon rainforest. They also learn that his parents fight a lot, and the dinner ends with Roberto's dad, Emmanuel, walking out. Later, Nina is captured by Axe, a big dude with an axe who works for the Hellfire Club. Axe trashes the New Mutants and escapes, but they follow using the special mind link that Danny has with Rain's wolf form. Danny and Rain save Nina while Roberto and Sam get their revenge on Axe. The New Mutants then board a flight with Nina as Emmanuel talks to Sebastian Shaw, the leader of the Hellfire Club. Emmanuel wants to make sure his wife never reaches her destination but not kill her, and Shaw says that everything is under control. While the New Mutants' vacation gets underway, the X-Men make a journey of their own as they head to Japan for Wolverine's wedding to Mariko. Wolverine's happy to see everyone except for Rogue, whom he still hates for stealing Carol's mind and powers, but Mariko accepts her openly. They are then nearly attacked by the Silver Samurai, but are saved by Yukio, and Wolverine joins the fray. Silver Samurai escapes and Yukio nearly falls to her death, but is caught by Storm, who is interested in Yukio's devil-may-care attitude. The X-Men are then all poisoned by Viper except for Storm, who goes with Yukio to a meeting Mariko is supposed to have with the Obayan of the Yakuza, who is joined by Silver Samurai and Viper. A battle breaks out, but Storm's powers go out of control and she ignites some explosives in the warehouse. Everyone is blown out, and Yukio saves Storm from drowning. Storm admits that she is losing control, and Yukio takes them to find somewhere safe. Back at Mariko's hospital, Wolverine prepares to set out to finish Silver Samurai and Viper off, then Rogue insists that she goes, since they are the only two to have recovered from the poison due to their powers. Wolverine is reluctant, but decides to take Rogue along, ordering her to follow his every move. Wolverine and Rogue manage to track down the Obayan, who is already dead. They rush back to the hospital and find it under attack by Viper and her goons, whom Rogue engages. Wolverine confronts Silver Samurai to protect Mariko, and the two have a beautiful wordless battle that ends with Silver Samurai alive, but Wolverine the victor. Before Wolverine can finish Silver Samurai off, however, Mariko stops him, urging Wolverine to not stoop to his level. Wolverine obliges as Viper arrives and points a gun at Wolverine, ordering him to let Silver Samurai go. Once Silver Samurai is out of danger, Viper fires, but Rogue fights him from above and throws Wolverine and Mariko to safety, taking the brunt of the blast. Viper's gun eventually overheats and Viper flees, with Wolverine lending Rogue his healing powers to save her life. A few days later, everyone gathers for Wolverine's wedding, Cyclops bringing Madeline with him, which really freaks out Lilandra. Storm returns from her adventures with Yukio, now sporting a biker jacket and mohawk, which enrages Kitty, although is pretty cool in my opinion. Storm is also surprised to see how similar Madeline looks to Jean, but Cyclops tries to assure her that it is just a coincidence. Kitty gives Madeline a bundled up Lockheed to hold, and we get a hilarious scene of Madeline pulling Cyclops in close and asking him what he's gotten her into. The wedding finally happens, but to everyone's surprise, Mariko tells Wolverine that he is not worthy and rejects him, leaving a tear leak down Wolverine's face. As Mariko leaves, she is watched by a man with the familiar, sinister brown mustache of Jason Wingard. The next issue opens with Cyclops and Madeline aboard the Starjammer, with Cyclops showing Madeline the impressive view. Corsair tells Cyclops that the Starjammers are leaving soon and asks if Cyclops would like to come, with Cyclops saying that he doesn't know. Back on Earth, Xavier and Lilandra have a similar conversation, although both are positive that Lilandra must return to space without Xavier. Kitty then drags Colossus to Storm's room and they kiss for the first time, before being interrupted by Storm, who reveals that she has removed all the plants she used to cherish from her room. Nightcrawler, meanwhile, is sending to Rogue, and gives an abbreviated explanation of the Dark Phoenix saga when Rogue asks why everyone is nervous around Madeline. Cyclops and Madeline are preparing to marry, so Cyclops decides to finally ask her if she's Dark Phoenix. Madeline replies by slapping Cyclops, knocking his glasses to the ground. When Cyclops manages to put them back on, Madeline is gone, and Dark Phoenix is in her place. In issue 175, Cyclops falls from the sky and is caught by Rogue, then explains that Dark Phoenix has returned. They get Xavier and check on Cerebro, but Xavier gets an electric shock from the machine and passes out. Cyclops then passes out as well, as Dark Phoenix rises from him and begins to trash the X-Men. She then decides to leave, and Storm takes Xavier and Cyclops to the infirmary. There, Cyclops has a vision of Light and his mother, who urges him to wake up. That he does, completely unharmed, and realizes that Mastermind is the X-Men's foe. He goes to tell the others, but they see him as Dark Phoenix and begin to attack. Cyclops manages to trick Kitty into phasing them to the Danger Room, where Cyclops rigged to work on his remote controller, anticipating that something would be wrong. Using the Danger Room to his advantage, Cyclops manages to take out the rest of the X-Men in an amazing sequence that ends with him taking Rogue to the infirmary and giving her Xavier's powers. Meanwhile, Mastermind explains to Captain Madeline that after escaping the Cosmic Hell Gene trapped him in way back during the Dark Phoenix saga, he's seeking revenge on her through the X-Men. By the time the other X-Men arrive in the infirmary, Rogue has read Cyclops' thoughts and is convinced that he's not Dark Phoenix, and they tell the others. Right on cue, Mastermind attacks as Dark Phoenix, but Storm creates a deadly tempest that knocks out Mastermind and nearly kills the X-Men. They also find Madeline in the rubble, whom Cyclops resuscitates. A short while later, Cyclops and Madeline get married for real, the first of the 3 weddings so far to actually go through. The issue ends on a beautiful full page spread of Cyclops and Madeline kissing in their fancy clothes, closing off Cyclops' time on the X-Men for real. These 2 issues are an amazing read and a great Cyclops story for him to go out on. Following that extravaganza, we get a downtime issue where Cyclops and Madeline crash their plane on their way to their honeymoon and fight a giant squid, but they manage to get airborne just as a storm hits and they survive happily. That's the focus of the issue, but we also get a little closure on Wolverine's wedding, where Mariko reveals that she feels that she isn't honorable enough to marry Wolverine until she cleanses her family's name, but she feels that Wolverine should keep her family's honor sword, which he accepts. We also meet government agent Valerie Cooper, who reveals in a government meeting that Russia is building defenses against mutants to counter Magneto's recent attack on them, and she believes that America should follow suit. We also have a brief encounter with the Morlocks, where Callisto reminds Caliban that Kitty promised to marry him if he helped her, which he did do. After that intermission, we return to Uncanny X-Men Annual number 7, which opens with the X-Men playing baseball. Then an alien shows up and just steals the entire mansion. So the X-Men go on a wild goose chase through New York, clashing with both the Avengers and Doctor Strange before winding up at the offices of Marvel freaking Comics, where all the Marvel people get to show up and make bad jokes. It eventually turns out that the alien was playing a game of scavenger hunt to try and become leader of his family, but Lilandra convinces him to give all his stuff back, and then he cries and then makes stupid 80s memes with Kitty and Illyana. For the record, Illyana acting like a typical teenage girl is really unnerving, although Kitty's not much better considering how awkwardly she's drawn. In essence, this issue is a disaster. I guess you can't win them all. Issue 177 fortunately opens with Mystique in combat against the X-Men, whom she manages to kill one by one until Nightcrawler, who she can't bring herself to defeat. Afterwards, it's revealed that Mystique was training against Arcade's robots, and she plans to do anything to get Rogue back from the X-Men, as she refuses to believe that Rogue left of her own free will. In space, Xavier says his last goodbyes to Lilandra as she leaves with the Starjammers. Back with the X-Men, Kitty is afraid that Storm turned into a monster and refuses to talk to her, so she goes on a date with Colossus to a play, along with Nightcrawler and Amanda. The building gets attacked by the Brotherhood, and after Pyro heats Colossus to an immense degree, Avalanche doused him in liquid nitrogen, leaving Colossus a solid stone. Kitty ends the issue on a cliffhanger by shouting Colossus' name in English. Next issue opens right where the last one left off, with Kitty alerting the Professor before rushing to the Fantastic Four's Baxter building to steal a device that will heal Colossus. Xavier decides not to let Rogue know about the Brotherhood attack, so he just sends Storm and Wolverine. They end up teaming up with Nightcrawler to fight and defeat the Brotherhood, but they oddly surrender. At the mansion, Xavier senses something is wrong with Rogue right before she shoots him, knocking him out. Rogue then bursts into the room, revealing that the Rogue who shot Xavier is Mystique. Rogue and Mystique argue about Rogue staying with Xavier to learn to control her powers, but Mystique accepts and let Rogue and Xavier go in exchange for the Brotherhood, to which the X-Men agree. Kitty, however, has fallen out of the Baxter building and appears to be dead, ending the issue on a second cliffhanger. As it turns out, Kitty has been kidnapped by the Morlocks to fulfill her wedding vow to Caliban, and despite her attempts to run away, Kitty decides that she is honor-bound to marry him, leading to her 4th wedding in this single series of issues. Nightcrawler is also checking on Colossus, and there's a great moment where she feels that Illyana is taking his death incredibly hard since Colossus is her brother, but Illyana fears how hard the X-Men are taking it since she's become desensitized to death in Limbo. Anyways, Wolverine deduces that the Kitty found by the police is a fake thanks to her scent, and Storm deduces that the Morlocks have her. Storm, Rogue, and Wolverine confront the Morlocks, and after a brief fight, Kitty convinces everyone to stop and tells them that she is marrying Caliban of her own free will, once the Morlock healer helps heal Colossus. The plan is for Rogue to steal Colossus' powers and the healer to heal the wounds, and the plan manages to work, although Rogue temporarily turns to stone. Kitty leaves to marry Caliban, but he lets her go since he wants her to be happy and return to him of her own free will. Kitty calls Caliban a friend, then returns to the surface, ending this stretch of Uncanny X-Men issues on a fairly high note. Next up, it's time to return the New Mutants to see how their field trip in the Amazon is going. Issue 8 opens with the New Mutants surviving for a bit before one of the crew members named Castor tries to kill them covertly, but fails. Donnie and Sam end up finding some Native Americans and capture one of them, whose name is Amara. Castor tries to kill Amara but gets attacked by Rain, who pours her heart out to Amara about her being scared of her powers. Castor then sabotages the ship, leading it to crash over a waterfall and Roberto's mom to seemingly drown. However, the New Mutants barely have time to think about that as Amara is actually white, and a group of Roman soldiers have appeared, in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. The New Mutants and Amara are taken to a hidden city called Nova Roma, literally New Rome, and placed in prison cells. Amara explains that her father, Senator Aquila, is fighting against Senator Marcus to keep a republic in Nova Roma. The New Mutants then get separated by gender, with Roberto and Sam drugged to being enraged and thrown into a gladiator arena, while Danny and Rain are drugged to be stupid and put in the stands. When Roberto and Sam start to kill each other, Rain enters into her wolf form and enters the fray, which snaps Danny out of her stupor and lets her use her powers to frighten the others out as well. Marcus then declares Rain a descendant of Julius Caesar and the wolf that raised Romulus and Remus due to her powers. Meanwhile, Amara is captured by Marcus's mysterious wife Selene. The New Mutants are paraded around town and allowed to stay in Marcus's palace, where Marcus explains that Aquila is trying to become a dictatorial emperor. After he leaves, Sam and Rain get into a fight as Sam believes Amara while Rain believes Marcus. Roberto thinks he sees his mother, but isn't able to confirm his finding, and Danny goes sneaking around and gets captured. Rain, Roberto, and Sam get attacked by Castro, who seemingly works for Aquila, giving Marcus enough reason to arrest him. Roberto and Sam stop him, with Roberto feeling that something is wrong. Meanwhile, Danny and Amara are taken to a lava pit where Selene sacrifices young maidens to steal their life energy, and when Amara falls in, she emerges covered in flame. Now going by Magma, Amara battles Selene, who is telepathic and telekinetic, and although Amara manages to escape, Donnie is captured instead. Roberto manages to free his mother and learns that Castro worked for his father in the Hellfire Club to ruin the trip. Amara escapes to Marcus's palace and initiates a fight to free her father, and with the help of the New Mutants and the anti-Marcus Centurions, manages to defeat, with Aquila killing Marcus. The New Mutants and Amara then go free Donnie, using all of their powers to finally defeat Selene, although Amara is scared of her new powers. Following that multi-part storyline, we get a pair of Downtime issues, the first of which takes place in Rio. Roberto confronts his father, and although he wants Roberto to join him, Roberto basically tells him that he's evil and storms off. Amara is also staying with the New Mutants to learn to control her powers, but they start to go out of control as she starts erupting volcanoes in Rio. After passing out, the New Mutants find Amara in the care of a homeless shelter and everything as well. Issue 13 takes place at the mansion, where Amara has another freak out and goes to hide in the woods. After spending some time with tech genius Doug Ramsey, Kitty finds her and tries to comfort her, but it doesn't go well. Kitty then gets in an argument with the New Mutants before being summoned by Xavier, who is mad at her for ditching her studies and to hack stuff with Doug. The New Mutants then go through a training montage that ends with Amara finally feeling comfortable about staying at the mansion. Before we go to issue 14, it's time to hop over to another miniseries, this one called Magic, Storm and Illyana. Technically taking place during Uncanny X-Men 160, it was released around here and works as a nice prequel to the next issue, so let's go. As a quick recap, Illyana got brought to Limbo by the Demon Belasco, and the X-Men followed, meeting older, usually dead versions of themselves until they escaped the real world. However, during the time jump back, Illyana magically aged from 8 to 14. This tales from her perspective during those formative years. After Illyana is captured by Belasco, he creates a Bloodstone and puts an independent that he gives to Illyana, claiming that once she has all 5, her transformation will be complete. An aged version of Storm, who is also a sorcerer, comes to rescue her, but is outclassed. Fortunately, she is saved by Cat, a grown-up version of Kitty who is basically a ninja. The two take Illyana to Storm's Paradise Refuge that she created with her magic. Illyana listens in on a conversation between the two that reveals that Storm wants to train Illyana to become a sorcerer and break Belasco's hold, while Cat wants to take Illyana to the real world, which will inadvertently let Belasco come through if Illyana gets all 5 Bloodstones. Cat runs off and Storm tries to train Illyana to be a sorcerer, but it doesn't go super great, with Storm accidentally revealing that she and Illyana are both partly tainted by Belasco, and Illyana innocently believing that Belasco truly loves her like he says he does. Not long after, Cat breaks in, knocks out Storm, and convinces Illyana to run away with her into the wilderness of Limbo. Cat and Illyana run around for a bit, and Illyana falls through a magic stepping disc that acts as a teleporter within Limbo. She is then almost captured by Belasco's servant Sim, but Cat comes and saves her. Cat then trains Illyana for 3 years in the Pastiche of the Savage Land, where Cat gets to show off her savage side and reveals that Belasco turned her into a half-cat, fitting of her namesake. The two then head to Belasco's fortress to access a portal to Earth that Cat hopes she can phase through, but first they have to fight an evil version of Nightcrawler that Cat kills. As Cat tries to phase through the rift, however, Belasco pulls him out and corrupts Cat's soul, turning her into his loyal servant. There's also a part where Claremont writes that Cat eats Nightcrawler's dead body, which is freaking disgusting, but okay. Belasco then gives Illyana a dagger, and although she realizes that she could just stab him, she cuts herself instead, creating the second Bloodstone. Illyana then trains for years with Belasco, becoming more proficient in sorcery, but wanting to escape. Illyana tries to make an acorn like Storm once did, but it explodes as it is corrupt inside, just like Illyana. Illyana eventually discovers that she can control the stepping disc and uses one to accidentally send herself back in time to Storm's first fight with Belasco in her prime as a sorceress. Storm seemingly kills him, but it was actually her own innocence that she killed, her soul becoming Belasco's, although she later regained it. When Illyana returns to her own time, she finds that Storm has returned to free her, but Storm is fatally wounded by Cat. In order to save Storm's life, Illyana fights Cat and wins, killing her best friend. Storm then bids Illyana to kill her, but Belasco assures her that she won't die until Illyana has taken her blood for the 3rd Bloodstone, damning Storm's soul to hell. This is where Illyana finds herself at the start of the 4th and final issue, where she defies Belasco by murdering Storm. Illyana then escapes with the stepping disc and winds up back at her family home, realizing that she can jump between Earth and Limbo. Unfortunately, her parents don't recognize her, seeing how she's aged 7 years in the span of 30 seconds, and Belasco drags her back to Limbo with the zombie X-Men. Belasco then takes a piece of Illyana's soul to make the 3rd Bloodstone, then drops Illyana at Storm's ruined paradise, using a spell to prevent her from accessing her stepping discs. The paradise turns into a frozen wasteland stuck in a chronic blizzard, the only other sign of life being Storm's first tree. Illyana uses the tree's life energy to try and make an acorn, but fails every time. After weeks of trying, Illyana finally kills the tree and almost gives in to despair. However, she realizes that she can't create life like Storm, because Storm wanted to create, but Illyana wants to destroy. Instead of an acorn, Illyana creates a sword from a shard of her soul, the Soul Sword, and shatters Belasco's spell. She goes to face him and kicks Belasco's ass, stealing his demonic energy and becoming more demonic. As Illyana is about to kill Belasco for good, she realizes that she's becoming like him and decides to let him love, much to Belasco's anger. Belasco runs away like a coward, and Illyana returns to the mansion. The issue ends with her looking out over the hillside as it snows peacefully and the New Mutants play happily. This leads right into New Mutants number 14, which starts with the exact same scene, still narrated by Illyana. She waxes a little poetic about how she's demonic and emotionless, then joins the New Mutants into town to get supplies to throw a surprise party for Xavier. When they return, however, they find that Xavier has been knocked out by Sim, who is alive and out to capture Illyana. Sim kicks the New Mutants' butts, leaving Illyana alone to break out her magic powers and defeat Sim. She nearly kills Sim before realizing that she's a demon and offers Sim the chance to serve her instead of Belasco, which Sim accepts. The New Mutants throw their party, and Xavier is finally able to walk without suffering psychic backlash. Doug Ramsey has also been accepted to Emma Frost's Massachusetts Academy, which is where we'll leave off for now. The Illyana storyline is one of my personal favorites from this era of X-Men, and Illyana really stands out as a character. So far, the New Mutants stories have been fairly weak, but now that the main cast is assembled, things should start to pick up. The X-Men issues following the Brood Saga are all also stand out, although things go downhill for a bit after Cyclops' wedding. Join back next time when both titles start to pick up steam as the X-Men barrel towards Secret Wars and join an uneasy alliance with Magneto, while the New Mutants continue to deal with even darker and more mystical threats. See ya then.